I'm not going to say we got complacent or anything by any means. I'm not going to say that, but I am going to say we got complacent.
You know, I'm not from here, but it seems like people had either forgotten that or just kind of, there's just like, was a culture of complacency.
You know, people aren't coming to Denham because of the history of 80s and 90s anymore.
I remember the key word back then was like New Denham.
So we're all one, we're all Denham Springs. I think that's the biggest thing is our community standing behind us through the good times, through the bad times, and all the in-betweens.
I used to tell them all the time, all we need is one program to get a ring and start wearing rings in these hallways, and people are going to freaking want them.
So my name is Joe Ryan.
This is Johnny Lombardi.
Brett Beard, athletic director, head football coach.
I'm the head strength and conditioning coach for all sports. I'm also the head boys and girls powerlifting coach and the running back coach for football.
So my position here at Denham Springs is I'm a film and TV teacher and the director of our student-led video production and digital media program called Denham Springs TV, or DSTV for short. And I've been doing that for about 7 years. And yeah, so, you know, Denham Springs currently is the biggest public school in the state of Louisiana, and then with a rich history. Over 125 years the school's been around, and in those years you have tons of state championships, great teams. I believe their first state championship was 1923 in boys basketball, and since then they've won in softball I think 3 or 4 times. They've won girls basketball in 1996. They had a lot of powerful football teams in the 80s. In 1972 they actually tied in the state championship game in football against Hanville, and back then the tiebreaker was first downs. They didn't play overtime back then, so they lost the state championship on first downs, if you can even imagine that nowadays, right? But you know, you had the flood in 2016, which was a big devastating event for everybody here in the Baton Rouge area, but specifically here in Denham Springs, and to kind of overcome and come back from that as a school and as a community. But also I think, you know, people forget for athletic teams, like athletes were leaving to go to private schools in Baton Rouge. Like they didn't know what Denham Springs football or athletics was going to look like that year.
It was, back then it was just kind of a stigma against everything. You know, everybody was kind of separated. It was basketball's here, football's here, you know, baseball, softball, things like that. So there was a circle of the wagons, I guess you'd say. They kind of kept to themselves, and it wasn't one, I guess, heartbeat.
But that first year, 2019, going 1-9, and just the deflation overall of the program at that point, nothing seemed to go right. It just seemed kind of like an apathetic, it wasn't there, it wasn't coming together.
It was kind of just very gloomy on campus all the time. It was kind of, you know, going through the motions.
People forget at that point, you're 2 years off the flood at that point. Like, it kind of feels like ancient history now, but like, Denham was still kind of coming back and rebuilding, and it just wasn't a good mix at that point. And then, you know, Coach Conadise leaves, and Coach Beard is hired from Live Oak down the street to come into Denham. And of course, Live Oak under Coach Beard had been in this huge upswing.
Well, you know, originally I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I played football at Vanderbilt University. I've kind of traveled all over, over the South. When I graduated from Vandy, I had a 5th year of eligibility and transferred to Southeastern and played football. That first year they had football back in 2003. My old head coach from Vandy had gotten fired and gotten hired by Hal Mumme to start the football program. And I'd never been to Louisiana at that point, and when I got the call from Coach Woody and had graduated to where I could go where I could transfer, because I wouldn't have left Vanderbilt without that degree. I came to Hammond, Louisiana, fell in love with it. I knew I wanted to be a football coach, and from there I just kind of climbed the ranks in coaching, and just fell in love with Louisiana. And then when I got my first big head coaching job in high school in Woodlawn, I still lived in Hammond because Baton Rouge is so big, it's not really a community school, so I could still live in where I wanted to live and just commute over. And then from there, I knew I wanted a community school. I knew I had fallen in love with Livingston Parish. I knew the people in Livingston Parish. And when Live Oak called, I took that as a step up or another change in my career, because I was going to inherit not just a parish, but a community school.
Right, Coach Beard likes to say, Denham didn't go down.
Live Oak and Walker wanted more and came up. And then not only did they come up, they blew by Denham.
So Coach Beard comes down here to Denham Springs to kind of begin to build that new culture in athletics, that new winning culture, and that his first season in 2020 was a COVID-shortened year. I believe they went, it might have been like 1-8 or 1-9 again. And again, just another tough year, but you could see like the building blocks.
Yeah, you know, there was definitely a disconnect. And I used to look from the outside in going, man, I want to be the guy that cracks that code. Like, I don't know how they lose with these kids. They're big, they're physical. You know, it was really tough. I inherited a lot of different situations my first couple of years that had to be moved away from for this school to get healthy and then grow. I got a ton of respect for previous head coaches here. You know, again, the challenge, it is big. You know, and it's not the old Denham that was the heyday of Denham, where, you know, people were Denham Springs and Denham Springs only. You know, this community has grown and blown up, and you got a lot of people from all over now that are coming to Denham Springs. They are given the skills and the abilities to be successful whatever route they choose, and these are our classrooms. Do all that. These classrooms give us the ability to teach character, show character, teach work ethic, mimic character and work ethic. And you know, we live it in here, and we expect the same thing from them.
Yeah, there just was a culture of accountability and seriousness.
You know, the big thing when Coach Beard came in, it was the win is one mantra that we still live by to this day, because we're all one. We're all Denham Springs.
Culture of professionalism, of, you know, doing what's the job that we got to do to make all of our programs elevate.
Well, you know, you talk about the core values of our football program. You know, the first one is character. You know, who you are when nobody's looking, your word. You know, things that you can build in a weight room. If you want to be successful, that you've got to do in here and pour the details in. You know, we're big on building character, because you can't lie to yourself and you can't hide from it. You know, our second is work ethic. You know, our job is to teach these kids how to be committed to the process, how to work and outdo anybody and be competitive and outdo anybody around them that's competing for jobs in their future so they can be successful. When we talk about being, you know, competing at everything you want to do, winning, you know, you want to win, you know, and again, in here, it starts with yourself. You know, you getting up underneath this bar with some weight on it you're not sure you can do. Next thing you know, you've pressed it or you've stood up with it on your back. I mean, that's winning, and that's proving to yourself who you are and what you can do. Well, you know, our fourth core value is contribute to the bond of brotherly love. I think team sports in this weight room definitely teach that, mimic that, contribute that, because at the end of the day, I try to teach these kids, like, the most successful people in this world didn't get there alone. Winners love winners, you know, and winning drives a lot of it. Success drives a lot of the success we're experiencing, you know, whether it's different sports feeding off each other, or where we've got that pride back in wearing the purple and gold and the yellow jacket in public.
I remember the key word back then was like new denim. Like, that was kind of the catchphrase of, like, we're building a new denim. Like, this is a new era, a fresh start, and it just kind of was that change in mindset of, like, you know, we're Denham Springs, we can win big here, we can accomplish great things.
You know, the day and age we live in, the digital world, the social media world, you know, the communication world at such an advanced level, I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else other than John Lombardi and DSTV.
I think the creation of DSTV and the elevation of DSTV right around the same time as Coach Beard coming in, like, you know, him and I, you know, had kind of the same vision of what we wanted to build and how we wanted to kind of work together to do that. Our programs are getting exposure from DSTV, which creates buzz in the student body, it creates buzz in the community, so people are interested, and then in turn, like, when those teams start winning, right, they have the coverage from DSTV, which makes everyone excited, and it all kind of works together.
They gravitate towards these kids, they gravitate towards our school and program, so they're able to grow it and support it and love support it. You know, our brand is national. You know, we got tons of people all over this country and all over the world from Denham Springs, Louisiana.
We go travel on the road and people recognize DSTV everywhere. You know, when we go to state, people are coming in and talking to us, oh, DSTV, like, love your stuff, love seeing your stuff. And
we have such a big time platform in DSTV that you know, Mr. Simmons and Mr. Lombardi have built and grown. Lombardi is priceless.
And it's not just, you know, regular high school content, like it's professional level stuff that our students are producing here. So it's worked together. The growth of athletics and the new culture, and then the growth of DSTV, they've kind of gone side by side.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, when we first started the Brett Beard Show, you know, and you were a host of it, you know, it's one of those things where a lot of people are like, man, that's just a job. Like, it's almost you know, a pain to go do it. I actually love it because, again, where you guys that might not be athletes, that's my way to pour back into you. I want to be able to sit there with you and you work on your craft. Being the athletic director, I'm not your typical AD football coach where all I care about is football. I want to see all these kids, female and male, have an opportunity to be successful, to pour into their process and reap the benefits of it. And
You know, that's one thing that he's kind of shown is he'll be with every sport and he goes to every game. I mean, he was the softball coach, interim softball coach last year. So he took that role on, and he's coached powerlifting, and he's been to different things, and you'll always see him and his family different places, and that's something Denham hasn't had for a while.
You know, this is my family away from my family, and I try to bring my family here with me as much as possible. I want my kids to see our kids play, whether it be girl or boy. Like, you know, a lot of people have things negative to say about me, and they hammer me, and you know, that's part of the job. But at the end of the day, I think if you talk to these kids, they recognize that I truly love Denham, and I truly appreciate and I care about them because I'm there supporting them, and that's all it is. Sometimes it takes a perfect storm. You know, people blast us because of what we've had to spend.
It was getting older, it was starting to fall apart.
There's just was a culture of complacency.
And here we are now with the perfect storm.
If an athlete's blessed to go on to college, it's better than where they'll go.
I always wanted to build the biggest Taj Mahal, the Mecca there is.
I was a transplant to Denham, and Texas, sports are king. Well, when I got here, it was grass field, it was the field house we have now currently over there, the Butch-Watts field house. It was the older stadium. Home fans were on the side where the sun actually sets into their eyes. So all that stuff, the facilities were a lot different than what I was used to. You know, the weight room we had over there was immaculate and state of the art. So coming over here, it was kind of like, okay, we have this little room that's, you know, about 1,800 square feet. And even the current weight room we have now was built my senior year here. So that was a stepping stone in the right direction. The year after I graduated, they got their first turf.
You know, people aren't coming to Denham because of the history of 80s and 90s anymore. They were going to come look at Denham. They were going to see our old stadium. They were going to see our old facilities. They're going to see we didn't have a track or a baseball or football field on campus. You're going to go to Walker and see their beautiful new school. You're going to go to Live Oak, see their beautiful new school and all those facilities up there. And people from outside, I mean, they want the bells and whistles for their babies. And here we are, what we think is the best in the heart of Livingston Parish and the best of Livingston Parish. Well, this is what we were offering. So, you know, people passed us up. You know, sometimes it takes a perfect storm. And that perfect storm just happened to kind of brew over the first 6 to 8 months of people that we needed to make this real. You know, everybody talked about it, and we had all kinds of different plans that were out there. We had a track guy and a soccer guy that were really good at their job, had kind of separated, wanted it separate from everybody else. I always wanted to build the biggest Taj Mahal, the Mecca there is, to where everybody in the state is jealous of what we have. And so we had to get them back on board and kind of bring it all together. And you know, you start with the board members, you start with the people of the community that voted for this. The board members, the admin, that all want the best for our kids.
Yeah, so obviously, you know, we're sitting here in the new field house, the deck overlooking Yellow Jacket Stadium, but it kind of goes back to even before this, right? The new football field with the track, right? That was right after, you know, you left school. So about 4 years ago, that new field coming in with the new track. We had never had a track before. New softball field, new baseball field. Those were kind of the first round of new facilities that were opened up here, which have been, you know, complete game changers for us. And then now it was building this football field house with the new weight room, the offices, and all this stuff. It's state of the art. It's truly the best facilities in the state of Louisiana. You look at this place and better than some Division III colleges, you could make an argument. You know, it's first class all the way. But even besides that, you know, we have the old Wax field house, which is over there as well. Like, that whole field house is being gutted and renovated to create brand new locker rooms and brand new facilities for our track and field programs and for both of our soccer programs, which will be housed in there. So now we have this locker room space and field house space for even more programs, which we didn't have before. They had no space to go. So again, it's not just a football only thing. It's okay, this thing is being built, but it's opening up opportunities and space for our other programs, track and soccer and others, to be in that old field house once it's fully renovated. That weight room in there also has all brand new equipment that Coach Ryan was able to raise with our Lift-A-Palooza last summer.
So the old weight room, those weights were purchased in 2005. Obviously we're in 2026. So we just got new racks in there. Some of those bars and even the benches had been there since 2005. So we went a 20-year span of that stuff lasting, and we had just outgrown it. It was getting older, it was starting to fall apart, and it was time. So that was something that us as an athletic department, we took it upon ourselves to have a lift-a-thon, or what we called it, the Lift-a-Palooza, where basically the kids work out all summer with me. At the end of the summer, we're gonna show off to the community our hang clean or power clean max on the football field. So what we did is we set up 15 platforms. We had the kids come in waves where it was all the girls first, the non-football boys, then the freshman football boys, and then the varsity football boys. Well, they asked community members, family members, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, mom, dad to help donate. It didn't matter if it was $1 or $100 or whatever they wanted to donate. They put towards us getting better equipment in the weight room to match what we have in here, which we were able to take our first phase of that, get new racks, get new bars, get some new weights. For the first time in school history, have an Olympic bar, a power bar, and a female Olympic bar for our female athletes. So between the sports donating and raising a little bit north of $12,000, we were able to get all that stuff, and it's just the first phase. You know, we hope to continue to build upon that. Mr. Howard wants to make it a yearly event, not just a one-time fundraiser, but just make it a community event and have a fun time doing it.
Well, again, you're looking at new equipment, updated equipment, new facilities to give our kids the best chance to be the best they can be, because it still comes down to kids executing the game plan and playing the game. You know, we forget that's the biggest aspect. You know, the old saying is it's Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's, and that's true. Whether people want to admit it or not or want to say it, you know, the coach is always going to wear it, and I'm okay with that. My name's on it. But at the end of the day, if we can continue to make Jimmy and Joe the best they can be, well, that's going to give us a chance, you know, along the way, getting over these hurdles and getting these tastes to get us where we want to go.
I would say the biggest thing is not wavering. You know, believe that we are a true public school. You know, there's going to be years that we have to rebuild, and that's every sport. You know, it's not going to be great every single year.
I used to tell them all the time, look, all we need is one program to get a ring and start wearing rings in these hallways. And people are going to freaking want them, and they're going to do everything they can for them. And you know, we're getting there. You know, every program is growing. It's having its success. It's getting over those hurdles, and it's a process. And you know, it doesn't happen overnight. We're at a public school, man. We go in waves of Jimmys and Joes, and all you can do is give them the best classroom to be the best they can be, to grow them to be the best they can be. Teach them some core values as an extension of their family and what their mom, dad, whoever's raising them is teaching them.
I think that's the biggest thing is our community standing behind us through the good times, through the bad times, and all the in-betweens.